Okay, we're moving on to servicing the fork now, and this shouldn't be too hard. I have done it before on my old bike. I have watched a few videos online and I think I've got it down. So just a matter of pulling it apart, taking the wiper seals out, replacing those and putting it all back together. Remove the top cap and let all the air out. So it's at a better height. And here is the rebound knob. We have to remove that. There's a little grub screw that's just under there. And that pops off. Keep that safe. And the grub screw, just be careful that you don't lose that as well. Then we have this nut here which needs to be removed, and this nut here which needs to be loosened. We've got a 10mm socket. Just going to undo that bolt and that one in there. Now before you go taking it all off, you're just going to make sure that we have something below to catch the oil that will come out of the lowers. So now that you have loosened these bolts off, there is a proper tool that goes onto the thread that you whack with a hammer in order to release the lowers from the stanchions. But I don't have that tool, so I am going to gently, very gently, knock those through on either side. Once you feel those lowers just pull away slightly, we're going to remove the nuts and take the lowers off the stanchions. So rotate the forks down, because when you remove them, all the oil is going to drain out the bottom. And give those stanchions a wipe down. Remove the old O-ring. And these things are in pretty good condition for 2 years without having a service. I'm just going to take off these retaining springs. And we're going to pull out those wiper seals. Nice and gently. And there's our foam. Put ourselves some degreaser. Clean out all the old oil that was in there. Trusty bottle brush. And we're going to rinse them out with some water. It helps to turn the tap on. We're going to let them drain out and dry for a while. I'm also going to give the steerer a bit of a clean up as well, because of all the gunk from the headset. So here I have my seal kit, which I have got from Shockcraft, and they've also supplied me with supergliss, which is going to go in the lowers. Now this stuff is supposed to be really good for suspension, and it comes highly recommended. So I'm going to give that a go and see what it's like. Put those in there and let them soak it all up. So give them a good squeeze so that they can absorb all the lubricant. With the foam wiper seals fully soaked and the lubricant, we're going to pop them back inside the fork. The next thing that needs to go in is these doohickeys. They'll sit in there and we need to press them down. So with some gentle persuasion, the right side is done, and I'm going to now start on the left. Right, so I'm ready to put the lowers back on the stanchions, and not forgetting my O-ring to go on first. Now I'll put a little bit of lubricant around the seals here. You may wonder why one is green and I've got one of the originals. Well, the new one that was supposed to go on there was such a bastard to put in. It really frustrated the hell out of me, and it just would not work, would not line up properly. So the old one went in quite nicely. And we're going to push those up slowly, and already it feels a lot nicer. Rotate it upwards because we're going to add our lubricant in there. So now we're going to add 10 millilitres of our supergliss into the air side, and we're going to put 30 mils into the damper side. Now this may differ from what Fox have got on their website, but these are the measurements that the guys at Shotcraft have advised. Now I'll leave a link to Shotcraft's website on the description below, so if you need any of the stuff from here you can just go and drop them a line or order it from their website. Now I've just popped the ends through, and we're going to put the crush washers. Both those nuts there need to be torqued to 5.7 Newton meters, and back on goes our rebound knob. Now mine is 10 clicks from fully closed, so I'm going to reset that now. Right, and then you can go and put some air into it. I always put a bit more in to start off with, and then bring it back to my desired pressure. And once I install it back on the bike, I will double check it again. So that's finally my long overdue service for my fork. Now, it was a little bit trickier than I expected, mainly with the seals. Do yourself a favour and get the right equipment. Get the proper press to put that in, because it's not the easiest without it. And I'm sure that Shotcraft, who I purchased the materials off, will not endorse the methods that I've used to assemble this again. But nevertheless, it's done, and finally that's one off the checklist, and I can continue on with doing the rest of the bike. It's time to put the front end back in. The headset bearing, it's all been cleaned. Just applying a bit of grease into the top of the headset. Extra pair of hands is always handy if you've got them. Especially when you drop shit like that. Don't forget your headset spacer. We'll line that all up properly, but let's just get it secured for now. So it's there. For now, just going to go and tighten up all the bolts, put the brake caliper back on, and we should be almost ready to ride. So welcome back to my video on how to be a cheap bugger and service your own bike, get it wrong and wish you had got someone else to do it for you. We have nearly reached the end. Fork, shock, bearings, clean derailleur, new derailleur cables going on. So the next thing on the list of things to do was the bottom bracket. Now this has been on the bike for a couple of years now and is probably well and truly past its use by date. Now I'm going to replace it with what was already on there, the Shimano press fit bottom bracket that came standard with it, and I know you're all screaming, why the hell, Adrian, are you replacing it with a press fit plastic bottom bracket? It all comes down to cost. I'm trying to do this on the cheap, obviously, but to be honest, that bottom bracket on there gave me absolutely no problems, no creaks, no grinding. It was absolutely fine for the 2 years that I've had it, but I do think it's probably worth replacing now. So yes, going to replace it with the good old press fit. Just remember, this is a half-assed approach on how to do it. If you were smart, not like me, you would have the correct tools, but I don't. So I am going to knock out the non-drive side part of the bottom bracket. I'm going to pop around the other side and show you how to do that. I'm using probably what every bike mechanic would be cringing at watching me use, a flat screwdriver. You can use a nail punch or the proper tools. Once again, highly recommended. Pretty bloody stubborn. So I'm just going to turn the camera off and have a bit of a swear at it, and then I'll be back. Well, that was so painful, I had to go get another beer. And you're probably glad you weren't around to hear me swearing at that thing, because it was stuck in there pretty bloody tight. But it's out now, and we can go and put the new one in. So here's the old bottom bracket, finally out. And it's looking pretty beat up. So here we have the press fit bottom bracket, the new one. And if you can see written in there, it's got a left and a right. So this is the drive side, this is the non-drive side. And we're going to use the same method that we did with the bearings earlier on, but I have jimmied up a homemade press with a square washer, and I've epoxied another washer which is the same diameter as the inside of the bearing, and that's just going to keep it centered in there quite nicely. So now I've got my bottom bracket ready to install. Going to lightly grease the cups, makes installation easier and eases the creaks. Now some people are recommending to use Loctite on it. Bike shop that I have been chatting to lately have recommended just using grease on it, and we're going to see how that goes. Just a mistake that I made earlier is I put the spacer on the non-drive side. Always make sure you've got your spacer on the drive side. With the Trance, it has just the one spacer needed, as a few of the other bikes around will probably need that spacer in there. So just make sure you get it on the drive side, that's the chainring side. Just make sure we're all nicely lined up. We've got our homemade press here. Now you can use the correct tools. Obviously it would be a whole lot easier and more suitable, but if you're on a bit of a budget like I am, then you've got to think on your feet and try for something a bit different. And we're going to slowly tighten it up now, just making sure that everything on both sides is lined up. That's all lined up. Bloody hell, I think it actually worked. So it's finally time to put the cranks back on, and I'm going to do this really quickly because I'm just tired of looking at this bike on the workstand. I just want to get on it. Supposed to be riding in a couple of days in Rotorua, and I need to test it to make sure everything's tight and everything's where it should be, and I don't have any spare parts left over. So, cranks on. Don't forget your little shim that goes in between the bolts. I'll pop that in there. Get out your good old tub of grease. Put a little bit around that side. Some just inside my bottom bracket. Again, some gentle persuasion. going to set our torque wrench to between 12 and 14 Newton meters for these pinch bolts, and you're going to tighten them up evenly. Right, time to put the chain on, tune in the derailleur, and we're away, finally. Now the chain's on, I'm going to fine tune my derailleur, make sure everything's running smoothly. I'm not going to sit through that and give you a lesson on how to do that because I'm not actually that clued up on it myself. I have put a link to all the videos that I've used for reference in the description below. There's a link to the playlist that's got all bike maintenance stuff that I have found useful in the past. So take a look at that if you're going to do this yourself. So there you have it. I finally bloody finished. Didn't think the end would come, to be honest. But it's been a hell of a learning experience, that's for sure. I've learned that I need to save my money when I want to do maintenance so I can get someone who knows what they're doing to do it. But it's not that bad really. One thing I will take away from this, and I'll pass on to you guys, if you are going to do some work to your bike, try your hardest to use the right tools. It makes life a hell of a lot easier. So with it all together, I seem to have one bolt left over, but oh well, I shouldn't really need that. I mean, it's just a small bolt, eh? So, time to go and test it, and then go for a ride. So whether you've made it to the end just for your sheer amusement, hoping something will go drastically wrong for me, or you've actually been genuinely interested, I actually commend you for staying here this long. Anyway, I'll catch you later with some actual riding videos.